Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the title of this video, I was kind of inspired by a video that I saw to talk about racism that I have faced, because as you can tell, if you're not living under a rock, the world has been going through a protest, not just in America, but also around multiple countries around the world. That makes sense? Kind of messed up that intro. But anyway, so today, as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about. Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the title of the video, I'm going to talk about my experience with racism and how I've dealt with it moving to Europe, coming from the Caribbean. So if you don't know, if you're living under a rock, the world has been going through a mass protest. I think the biggest civil rights protest in history, from my knowing, from what I've read. So yeah, a quick history of who I am, where I'm from. As you can tell by the flag from behind me, which is not hanged up properly, I am from a very small island in the Caribbean called Saint Lucia. In that country, we are predominantly black. There are a couple of people that are mixed, that have white, that have all kind of African tribes in them, but for the most part, black. So coming from a country where I am the majority to another country where I am now the minority was not much of a cultural shock, because I didn't notice it up until these events that I'm about to talk about. But a quick history of my first ever experience of racism was actually in my country, surprisingly. My grandmother, rest her soul, passed away a month ago. She owned many houses, and for one of them, she actually turned it into a Airbnb, and we've rented it out to multiple different people, different nationalities and different characters and different skin tones. This one time we rented it out to two couples. I don't really remember where they're from. I'm guessing they're from America. When they first came, okay, they were about the ages of 60 to 70, so they've been in the racism. So when they first came, I was the one who greeted them. They didn't want to accept the key from me because they wanted to see the owner for whatever reason, I don't know. So I told them that my grandmother's not there at the time. She will be there in a few minutes. I called my grandmother. They said they were fine to wait. Okay. My grandmother got off the bus. She opened the gate. She walked up to them. They still refused to take the key from us unless they saw the actual owner of the house. At first, I was shocked by that because I was like, this is the owner of the house? Unless you want the actual owner, which was my great grandmother who passed it on to my grandmother, then you would have to go to the cemetery. And I think talking to her would be a one way line. She's not gonna respond. So then they started to kind of like have certain gestures that I was a bit not used to, but kind of was like why are they acting that way? Until they said if the owner doesn't come, they don't want to stay there. They want their money back, and they made a whole commotion about us lying about who was the owner of the place. A whole conversation ended up happening, and they end up saying that they're gonna call the police, which was so funny because when the police came, the police know. Okay, this is. Imagine you born in that country. You worked hard for the house that you have. You work hard to build relationships with the community that you're in. So everybody in the community knows my grandmother. They know that she's the owner of the house. And imagine being that police officer that knows all of these details, that this house is my grandmother's house, and having to listen to these people talk about basically saying that this is not her house. And it was just the most funniest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. They said, oh, how was she able to get the house? Sure, they asked for so many things that was like, what the hell? After the police actually verified that it was a house, my grandmother then decided that she didn't want them in their house anymore. She wanted them out. She didn't want their money. Just leave. And going through that experience, I didn't really understand why my grandmother was so like. I didn't really understand the situation because I just didn't know of that as yet at the time. Fast forward a few years after, I moved to France. This was in October, Halloween. My first time ever experiencing Halloween. We don't have Halloween back in the Caribbean. So I was a little bit too old. I was like 20, 21 years old. So I was too old for Halloween. And my brother was young enough to still be able to do it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to chaperone. I'm just going to go with him to kind of just experience Halloween because I wanted to experience how I saw it on the TV. Turns out France is not as big on Halloween as America is. So that was kind of disappointing. So I'm going to tell you how I dressed. I think I had a black shirt, no, a black hoodie, a navy blue jeans, a Timberland, regular color, brown, khaki, whatever color that is, and I had a green coat with the fake fur. There was this one store that we went into, and they said this basically trick or treat. This woman, with a straight face, like it was a normal thing to say, she said to us in French, I'm going to translate it, not because you're black does that mean you have to dress as a robber. At first I was like, what? And then like I didn't get that. I mean, I get the stereotypes and stuff like that, but I didn't. It just shook me. I was like, what the hell? I didn't say anything because I was just trying to process why she said that. I started like looking at myself because you know when that type of racism when you just kind of like look at yourself like, wait, do I actually look like a robber? Like what about me that indicates that I'm a robber? Like you just look at yourself. You're not processing. You're trying to process what exactly she's saying. So a few minutes after we were walking up to the next house, the guy opens the door, talked to us so nice, gave us candies. Before he closed the door, he's like, wait, what do you dress as? And then he said, are you guys dressed as robbers? With a straight face. No smile on it, like just straight, like it's a normal, fluent it's like it's a normal thing to just ask somebody. At first so being that the second time, I was about to confront him and like say why, but then my brother was like, no, because he's used to that because he's been here longer than I have, so he's used to that. So he's like, you know what, let's just go. We got the candy. Let's just go. Fast forward a few months after this was in I came in 2018 September, so this is 2019. I went into a mall, and in that mall there was a supermarket. I entered the supermarket. The security guard stopped me. Was a woman about the ages of like, I don't know, 50 to 60, maybe 55. 50 to 55 years old. She stopped me and she said that she has to lock my bag. I mean, that's pretty normal. If someone comes into the store, they normally do that. So I was like, okay, fine, lock the bag. Beside me, 3 white guys passed by, and she didn't lock their bags because they had bags. They had pouches as well. She didn't lock their bags. She didn't stop them, but she stopped me. And at first, I was kind of confused as to why she did that. But being that I'm here and I'm starting to experience a lot of racism, I was like, maybe it's because I was black. Maybe I was reading into it. That's a thing about that type of micro racism, is that you don't know whether she's doing it because of my color or because of something or because of, it's like you don't even know. And that's the type of racism that I've experienced, is that you just cannot tell whether it's racism or it's just complete ignorance or it's just, you just don't know. There was a couple of more others that I don't really want to talk too much about, but these were like the micro racism that I've experienced. I have not experienced the kind of prejudice that they experience in some people might have experienced. Maybe I have experienced it, but because I'm not quite used to that, or I'm not experienced it as vast, or have the knowledge of what exactly it is, that I'm so oblivious to it. But that doesn't mean I'm not oblivious to when it happens to two people who look like me. And I just want to say to all the people of multiple of other colors that are protesting with us, we thank you, we see you, we love you. Thank you so much for supporting us. So yeah, that was my story of the racism that I've experienced. I mean, it's not as dramatic as other people, but it's still discrimination against my skin color, you know. And also, I have also gotten looks from security guards that when I enter the bank, they look at me a certain way that they won't look at other people of a different skin tone. So I mean,